It is now time for another interview from the backlot. This episode's guest, director of Death Valley, Matthew Ninaber. Welcome to Backlot 605. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Calderman. Join with me for a very special interview is the writer-director of the upcoming horror film Death Valley, Matthew Ninaber. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking time to talk about this film. And the film that we're talking about is Death Valley. It's going to be coming up to Shudder here in the next week. Let's talk a little bit about this movie and your history with the horror genre, because you're no stranger to this genre at all. Many people might have seen you in a hit film, an instant cult classic called Psycho Goreman that just came out last year. But now you're behind the camera for this movie. Let's talk a little bit about the history of this movie. How did this movie kind of come to fruition? Where did the story of this movie come from?
So this movie, I've always loved making action movies, and I wanted to make something that was bigger than anything I've done before. And when I was on the set of PG, I started seeing what Steve, the director, was doing with monsters. I'm like, I want to make a monster movie. And I didn't really think much of it. And then the pandemic hit, and then I wasn't doing anything. I kind of lost my job as an actor. And also other projects I was working on, like everything just shut down. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is it. This is my time. I am going to make a monster action film. And then I just started writing. I just went at it. Started bugging Steve, and he's just like, hey, if you want a monster, I have all your molds. You're gonna have to be the monster though, because it's gonna be built for you. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I've recovered from PG, but yes. And that's kind of how it slowly came about, is this perfect storm of being on PG, pandemic happening, really having no other option, and then deciding I'm going to make a movie. So that is the short of it.
Yeah, and I mean, for a movie made in during the pandemic, during a pandemic era that we are kind of still in right now, that's kind of a crazy thing to think about. What was the hardest part of shooting during this time? Like, what was the time frame of when you were shooting this movie?
So we went through different stages, because the first stage was, I just need to show people some proof of concept. So I remember asking Steve, I'm like, what do you have lying around the shop that I can kind of just shoot a little short film, or and he started giving me a couple pieces. Like, I got an arm, I got like this really beat up suit, I got this head that is absolutely ridiculous, and so that was the first stage of just putting enough stuff together that I could start sending to people. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna make a monster movie. I'm gonna make it with 10 people, because our crew, including cast, was most of the time down to 10, because in Ontario we had a rule at the time that you couldn't have more than 10 people. So I'm like, all right. And a lot of people didn't think it was possible. So I had to keep shooting stuff, keep showing them things. And slowly we started bringing people on board, and investors came on, and it would be Monday to Friday. I'd be building sets. I'd be working on paint and everything. And on the weekend we'd shoot. And I'd tear it all down again, Monday to Friday, building sets, doing rehearsals, shoot during the weekend, and tear it all down again. And it was like, yeah, it was, if you told me how much work it was going to be, I probably wouldn't have done it, but I was kind of naive and just jumping into it. And that's kind of how we started with it.
I mean, that's kind of the magic of movie making, is just jumping right into it, because I mean, just looking at this film, I mean, it's a gorgeous looking film, first of all. Yeah. Also, you have so much going on in such a great way with this movie, because it is a monster movie. But for your first half of this movie, it's an action movie, and you have some adventure elements in this as well. What was it like putting all of that stuff together?
Yeah, I wanted to make Indiana Jones meets Bad Boy meets Doom meets Resident Evil smorgasbord. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, honestly, this is what got me through the pandemic. I think having this and be able to hang out with people, it was the same group of people that we just, like, every weekend it was a new adventure, and And again, anyone who's reading the script is like, how is this possible? Like, this is like a $10 million movie. How are you going to do it? I'm like, I have a plan. Just trust me. We're going to do it. I remember when we did the flamethrower scene, our producers were like, why'd you tell me this? Why did you tell me that we have a flamethrower? Because they were just so terrified that we were going out there. But I really appreciate like having my brother, who's the lead in the film, having him come alongside, and Jacqueline, my wife. We really kind of like tag teamed this, and it was just basically you're hanging out with your best friends every weekend making a movie, and it's probably the best experience I've ever had. Yeah, being part of a project, especially with how bad of a time that we're going through. So be able to have something to look forward to, it really made it something special.
Yeah, and I can see that coming through on the screen here for people watching this. You know, you can feel that type of energy just oozing throughout this movie. And
Good.
speaking of the word oozing, this movie is just pure gory goodness from the start till the end. I absolutely loved that aspect of it. Obviously, you're no stranger to having something of that akin to your career. You know, Psycho Goreman also has a lot of gory goodness in it.
A lot of goos. Yeah.
What's your favorite part of working with this much blood and ooze and goop on a set?
Well, the worst part, I'm gonna start with the worst part, is that it gets on everything. Like, we're still cleaning equipment, and like when we rented stuff, it would just get on the gears, it would get on the lenses, it got on everything. So that's the worst part of working with this. But the other thing is, uh, it looks so cool to film. Like, again, it's just food coloring and corn syrup and stuff like that. But it it's just, I don't know. For me, I think it makes it so much fun, and getting in there. And I felt so sorry for Kristen, who is the lead, female lead, because I don't think I communicated how much blood was going to be on her and how much she was just always going to be bloody. And so, like, the opening weekend, she's just drenched, and she's just like, it's after 4 or 5 hours, it starts to stiffen. She's like, I can't move. So we're taking spray bottles to her and trying to, like, make it so that she can actually act. And then anytime we film somewhere, it looked like a murder scene by the time it's done. Like, people coming in on set. And again, this is just filmed in my small town in Ontario. Like, this is known as a Mennonite town. So you have horse and buggy going by, and then you have me in a monster suit on a skateboard with blood all over me going to the garage to film the movie. So it was just such a paradox of events that were happening.
Yeah, that's that's funny to see of where you guys shot it. And yeah, the dichotomy of, well, you have a Mennonite town and then you're shooting this type of movie, and it's kind of crazy. But I think a big part of why for me watching it, that this movie worked is, again, you're behind the monster suits once again in this. And I mean, you again, you look incredible in this,
Thank you.
and I mean that in the best way possible. Your character is just
bring
there.
This guy. There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look
No,
at
he's
as soon as the monster of this movie comes in, within the first 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. This is it.
Yeah.
What was it like coming up with character design for the creature, the monster of this movie?
So super funny. Originally, when Steve gave me just a suit to shoot test footage with, I was just grabbing stuff, and we're filming like a scene that we're going to send to investors, and everyone on set is laughing for some reason when I'm putting this mask on. I didn't really look at it closely, and finally, I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, all right, guys, what's so funny? Because I'm trying to make a movie. I'm trying to, like, this is my dream. Everyone's laughing around the place, and and the girls on set were like, your face is not scary. I'm like, what do you mean it's not scary? They're like, and this is not what we went with, but this was the first iteration of it. They're like, it looks like a vagina. It looks like a giant vagina is coming after. And then when we would put blood on it, and then people are just like, I was like, okay, so whatever we do, we can't have it look like vagina face. So, and that's what all the girls started calling it on set. I'm like, I can't even. So I sat down with Steve, and because we have like the Nephilim background, the whole idea is, man was created in God's image. So what if we just start taking away the things that make somebody distinguishably human? So taking the eyes out, taking the ears out, making the the mouth bigger. I love what Steve did with the mouth because he attached it so that the teeth are actually down here on my chin, so that when I opened my mouth, it gave it like a huge, like it just made it look so much bigger. I'm like, I just want to have a big like teeth. I just want teeth, and the rest was just Steve going crazy the way he does, and it was crazy because he made the monster suit in 2 weeks before he went out to Vancouver because he had Day of the Dead or some other project that he's working on. But he's like, Matt, because of what I put you through PG, I'm going to get your suit done. And he stayed up, like he basically did not sleep for 2 weeks and just came up with this amazing suit that I'm so happy with. I really, really, really like it. So that's a long-winded answer to get to what you asked, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean the suit for me is for horror fans watching this. You know, you're going to watch this, 5-10 minutes into it, and you're going to see yourself in that suit come up, and that's the twist, the selling point of the grasping moment of, all right, what else is going to happen next in this movie? I mean, I was showing my wife just the first part of it before she went to work, and we see your character's hand, and she has a thing for hands. So if anyone out there loves hand horror, it's going to terrify you. So I think that's, again, the monster work in this movie is just incredible. So congratulations on that. I mean, again, you're no stranger to it, but
being on PG really helped because I got to see day in, day out how they were doing stuff and just stole it all. So
what's the biggest thing you took away from behind the camera of working on PG Psycho Goreman to what you'd put into Death Valley?
A lot of the stuff is just talking with Steve about how to light monsters. There were, again, PG wasn't lit completely to be scary. PG was obviously a different type of movie, but there was a lot of things I learned not to do because they were doing it on purpose to just showcase PG. The first scene that we filmed of our movie Death Valley was the scene that you're talking about. And there's no light that actually hits the monster. We actually silhouette like him the whole time. And any light that does hit him is just a flicker. So I really loved in PG in the warehouse scene where PG first comes in and there's the group of like whatever the bums that are in there, and how he was silhouetted and how you only got glimpses of him. I'm like, I want to see if I can do a whole movie with a monster like that, where it's just like a flash of light, and then your imagination is just kind of taking over what it looks like, what the rest of it is, so that you're getting both, that you're showing the monster, but at the same time not so long that someone sees what it is. So you're always leaning like, what was it that I saw? So I wanted to keep the monster really dark without getting it muddy and shadowy, and that's kind of what I on PG when we're filming that warehouse scene, like, oh, I really like what they're doing here, and I want to incorporate some of that in my own stuff. So.
Yeah, I think that comes through miraculously well in this movie. Of, again, you're playing two different type of monsters between PG and Death Valley, whereas PG, it's okay to see you a little more because
totally
you're needed in that way. But this one if you're hiding in shadows, and I think that's a big part of this movie is whenever the monster is in the shadows, it's always lurking, it's always there. You know something bad is about to happen, and one of the big scares that got me in this movie reminded me of another horror movie. And I think there's quite a few horror references in this movie. There's Alien, The Thing.
Yes.
Is there any other movies that you looked at while making this movie where you're like, that's something I want to take and make my own? Because everything in this movie is its own, but you can definitely tell there's influences from other
I'm
horror
really
movies.
glad that you brought up Alien and The Thing, because those are the two movies that Alien, The Thing, and there was another one. I watched the whole Alien franchise before I made this one, and then I sat down and watched The Thing, and yeah, it was like, I like this. I like what they're doing here. There is another movie, and I forget. The fight scene. We didn't get to the same thing, but in the Doom movie with The Rock, there's this really dark scene where I forget what the actor is, but he's fighting in this dark tunnel, and it's being lit up. Just it's the flashes of electricity, and you barely see the monster. That was another part that I was like, I like that. I really, really enjoyed that scene. I'm like, I want to bring that interaction into my film, and so Doom was definitely in there. Trying to think. yeah, I watched a lot of movies before I made this one, so
It was something I was just not expecting as a horror fan going into this. The references, because they're really great. They're not like too on the nose, but they're like
yeah.
there if you're looking for them in that way. Especially at the end with your brother's character playing, the lead of this movie, and you have the references to The Thing. It's not overt, but it's like, I like that. I like what you're doing.
Mhm.
Um,
A big thing for me, and hopefully people get this is kind of like my thank you to so many movies that I've watched. And like as you watch movies, sometimes you want to be part of it, and this is the closest way of becoming part of it. I don't know if I'm wording that right, but I love those movies so much to kind of borrow those, mimic it, and throw it in there. And yeah, so
aside from Alien and The Thing, what are some other horror movies that maybe not just influenced Death Valley, but influenced you as a actor and as a filmmaker?
there's a lot of movies. There's also a lot of video games, and there's a lot of I wanted this to kind of feel like a video game. Like if you follow them, they go through all these adventures, and it's kind of like you're leveling up to like the final boss, and they come across like fallen people with guns, and like I like you have games like Halo, which again, when I played Halo back when I was like when it first came out, I was terrified of the flood. Like I was terrified of it. And when Gears of War first came out, and you had the locust, again, these were things that at the time I was like, oh my gosh, this is so like now it's just whatever. But I loved those video games so much. And then Resident Evil, and then there was a game called Fear, and Fear scared the crap out of me. Like it was like these little kids that have these powers, and so as much as movies shape me, like I'm a huge gamer. I love to play video games. I love the story. I love being sucked into that. And those games, I'm like, if I could somehow, like, if I could make Gears of War, oh my gosh, like I want to send this movie. I'm like, guys, I made this for like this on the pandemic. Please let me do something with Carmine or something like that with the Gears of War franchise, or like because I love those. I love them so much. I would love to bring them to a screen. So yeah,
Yeah, internet. Let's make it happen. Let's get Matthew to
let's
do a
go.
Gears of War movie. Let's do it. I got a couple more questions for you. One is just a fun one, and I want to hear your thoughts on this.
All right, all right.
If you're gonna have PG Psycho Goreman, he's gonna go up against the monster from this movie.
Oh man.
Who's winning that fight? Forget
Well,
a video game boss battle between the two.
I'm so sorry. There's gonna be an epic battle. PG is gonna come out on top. But then out of nowhere, like Godzilla versus Kong, there's gonna be some other monster that comes
Mhm.
that they have to team up and make it happen. PG is like, how do you compare? How do you fight PG? The guy is like literally the cosmos god. Like, I think he's just next level once he's all powered up. But I would hope that these monsters would become friends in that universe
Mhm.
and go that way. But
Yeah, that's right. PG is the nightmares that Thanos has in the night.
yeah, exactly. It's on a whole other level. So
Last question that I always like to end on, just because I'm curious what the filmmakers themselves would do in this situation. Death Valley, if it was going to play in a theater with another movie for an ultimate double feature, what movie would you pair it with?
oh my gosh, like I've heard people say Resident Evil, which I haven't seen the new Resident Evil yet. It's looking fantastic. Overlord, sorry, Overlord was another movie that there's references in here, so I feel like this could, you could be jumping through the eras of going Overlord, which is World War II, and then going more modern day. There's so many options, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
either of those would be great.
yeah, those would both be great double features. I would
Yeah,
I would love to see
yeah.
that. So, for people out there listening, watching, if they can check out Death Valley, when, where, and how.
So right now it's Shudder on December the 9th. So if you have Shudder, if you don't have Shudder, please sign up. And yeah, let me know what you think. I really put a lot of heart into this. And again, all the sets, everything is built with a very small team. So it's a very intimate project that got a lot of love, and very proud of it.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a pleasure. Absolutely love the movie. Congratulations on it. I hope to speak to you soon. I'm wishing you all the best. I'm loving the work that you're doing. So keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much.